Welcome back. Let's get right down to it, shall we? The last escape. Mashiro, Salyu, Kazumi, Jun, Anna, and Ukita just dashed out of the control room. They then slipped through Area 3, rushed up the emergency stairs, and within 42 seconds had made it to the bulkhead.
Yosh, 間に合ったよ。あとは隔壁が開けば。いや、待って、お姉ちゃんがいない。
何？
まさかあの人。
At that time, Kazumi had run to Area 1. Is she going for Nagisa? Can't leave her here. With that thought in mind, she leapt into a certain office. That was where she had laid Nagisa's body.
渚、ずっとここから出たかったでしょ。一緒に出ようね。
Kazumi left the room with her sister's body in her arms. Mashiro and the others waited in front of the bulkhead for Kazumi's arrival.
遅いわ。橘さん、早く！
Once Anna yelled impatiently, they saw Kazumi appearing at the bottom of the emergency staircase.
間に合った。行けます。開けてください、隊長。
Exactly 1 minute had passed at that time. Natsuhiko, Watase, and Yuuri raised their voices from the back of the control room.
よし、時間だ。各駅開放。
They operated the 3 control terminals at once and opened the bulkheads. An electronic sound rang out in front of the other 6's eyes. The bulkheads that had kept the 9 survivors imprisoned slowly began to open. Mashiro then immediately said telepathy to Dr. Tenkawa without missing a beat.
博士、聞こえますか？
She waited for her answer with telepathy, and then she heard the professor's voice.
真白ちゃん。よかった、通じた。どうして急に通信が？もしかして隔壁が開いたの？博士のハッキングソフトで隔壁のロックを解除しました。これから外に出ます。そっちの状況はどうなってますか？レスキュー隊の人たちに話を通せたわ。あ、保安ロッカーの連中も隔壁が開いたことに気づいたみたい。真白ちゃん、今すぐエントランスに来なさい。逃げ道を私たちが確保するから。
The professor's voice was frantic. The situation seemed urgent.
みんな行こう。エントランスまで走って。
6 of them ran as Mashiro shouted that.
ただいま、KSN が発生しました。緊急事態につき、セキュリティを封鎖モードに移行。
This time they definitely have some Nagisa with them, so... And we know Nagisa is the trigger for Case N.
施設内の全ゲートを閉鎖、ロックするとともに、隔壁を封鎖します。
Bulkheads shut behind them, but they dared not look back. They kept on running so as to not betray the feelings of the 3 who stayed behind of their own accord. Eventually they began to hear a commotion up in front of them. Oh, here we go! The entrance was in tumultuous disarray. Dozens of rescue workers who were pushing back a mass of 30 or 40 men in protection suits on 2 sides. In the center of that parted sea stood a woman.
博士、真白ちゃん、ユイ。
Where's Natsuhiko? A look of joy shone upon the professor's face and then froze the next instant. The realization, oh, there it is.
夏彦とユーリちゃんは。2人はシリウスの隊長と一緒に地下に残りました。なんですって。博士、大丈夫。夏彦たちは死なない。必ず生きて脱出する。
They got a plan. Sally shouted that to the professor. The professor hesitated for a second before speaking up.
分かったわ。あなたたちは逃げなさい。外にヘリが待機してる。このまま正面玄関まで駆け抜けて。
As the professor screamed, members of Sector Security 6 Security Sector 6 shouted across the sea of rescue squad members.
お前ら、止まれ。放射能汚染の可能性がある。勝手な行動は。
Shut up, you
いつま
bastards.
でそんな嘘を重ねてるんだ。
Ah, tell him, Ukita. Ukita's shouts interrupted them. Once the Security Sector 6 members faltered, Kazumi and Jun took that opportunity to shout.
それより、施設内に高火力爆発物があります。爆発まであと5分。全員退避な。
爆発物？
This time they saw a clear disturbance among the sectors. I almost did it again. Along the Security Sector 6 members. At the same time, the 6 survivors slipped through to the outside.
待て！逃がすな！おい！
Security Sector 6 crowd surged and kicked away at the rescue workers. But at that moment, the rescue copter came into view on the other side of the entrance. Natsuhiko, Yuuri, and Watase didn't see what was happening. They had the firm conviction that the other 6 had escaped.
よし、俺は脱出に必要なものを集めてくる。お前たちは自力で脱出口まで走れ。ああ、わかった。
Here we go.
隊長さん、エンジンルームで会いましょう。
Natsuhiko pocketed that broken Alice number 1 and ran with Yuuri. Yay, Alice! They headed towards the engine room. They hurried along their route as Natsuhiko withstood the pain of his wounds. Meanwhile, Watase headed for the Area 5 infirmary. There he picked up 2 oxygen respirator sets. 2 sets, this isn't enough. In a moment of quick wit, Watase headed for the factory. His ankle hurt from when Salvi twisted it, but he ignored the pain. There was a single air tank left in the factory. The tank they had used in the air jack to save him and Yuuri from the collapsed ceiling. There probably wasn't a reliable amount of air remaining in it, but there's still some in it. Better than nothing. Watase picked it up and then headed for Area 1. The emergency stairwell in Area 1 had a small time bomb. A time bomb that was hidden inside the fire extinguisher and intimidated Watase and Enna, but had failed to detonate. That bomb was the final key to their escape. It's everything we need. 2 oxygen respirators, 1 air tank, and a time bomb. With all those things in his arms, Watase hurried for the engine room. 3 minutes until detonation. Oh we're really cutting this close. Right at that moment, Natsuhiko and Yuuri were frantically climbing the ladder at the engine room. The ladder that led to the drainage pipe. The place Watase had tried to escape from, but abandoned. Of course, we can't escape through the drainage pipe. I'm sure we could use the pipe to protect ourselves from the explosion. The pipe was filled with water and its walls were 2.4 centimeters thick. Once the tetral bomb detonated, the safest place in the facility was most likely inside that pipe. And just as Natsuhiko and Yuuri reached the top of the pipe, Watase arrived in the engine room. In his arms were the oxygen respirators, the air tank, and the time bomb.
渡せ、遅いぞ。悪い、準備に手間取った。
Watase headed to the pipe next to Natsuhiko and Yuuri with terrific speed. The intake pipe that ran about 3 meters away from the drainage pipe. If they blew a hole in that pipe, it would submerge Labo in water. I knew it. Watase climbed up there and set the time bomb on top of the pipe.
よし、準備 OK だ。
Watase shouted that, and then looked at his watch. Numbers read 6:16:41. Just 19 seconds until detonation.
隊長さん、早くこっちに。
ああ、わかってる。
Watase stood on top of the intake pipe, focused all of his strength into his feet, and jumped to the drainage pipe 3 meters away with the air tank in his arms.
待たせたな、2人とも。
Damn it.
間に合ったか。早くあそこへ。
Natsuhiko shouted and looked to the pipe. There was a hole in it, the hole Watase had opened with an axe 3 hours ago. There was no guarantee that they'd survive if they got inside. 3 of them could still die if the explosion blew the entire pipe away. We have to take that gamble. 3 of them nodded to each other, and slipped into the drainage pipe. The pipe was filled with hot water. Natsuhiko's wounds were inundated. Burned and stung, but still, it's nothing I can't withstand. 3 of them held their breath inside the hot water and waited for the explosion to come. Watase held Natsuhiko and Yuuri to protect them. Is it here yet? Hurry up and bring it! After several seconds that felt like an eternity had passed, a tremendous roar rang out. A shockwave ran through and shook the pipe. Sounds of destruction echoed forth from all around them. The pipe shook as if they had been tossed into a waterspout. You could even feel the explosive blast blowing through. They were protected from it all by the water that surrounded them. Eventually, after the roars and tremors died down, they crawled out of the drainage pipe. Well, goddamn. Natsuhiko exclaimed at the sight that spread out before him. The engine room was ablaze. Due to the explosion induced by the time bomb Watase set up earlier, the intake pipe had broken and begun to spew water.
取水パイプに穴が開くとラボの地下部分が水没する。
Watase muttered that as he watched the water flow.
すると施設内にいる人間はみんな溺れ死んじゃう。だからずっと取水パイプにだけは穴を開けることができなかった。だが他の6人が脱出した今のこの状況なら
パイプに穴を開けても大丈夫ですよね。
何分かりきったこと言ってんだよ。
Natsuhiko chuckled and looked down at the spectacle beneath him. Indeed, their escape route was right there. Unlike the drainage pipe, the intake pipe had no obstructions whatsoever. If you opened a hole in there, you'd be able to escape. The only problem was how to breathe. Thanks to the oxygen respirators Watase had prepared, they all had a secure air supply.
あとは地下部分が全て水に満ちれば
吹き出す水の流れも止まる。あとは6名湖まで一直線だ。
And thus the three of them waited for the waters to submerge Leibo's basements. After some time had passed, the engine room was full of water. Natsuhiko and Yuuri put on the oxygen respirators. Watase held the air tank tube in his mouth.
いけるかみんな。
いつでも行けるよ。
よし。じゃあ6名湖までの500メートル。あとは歩くだけだ。
The three nodded at each other, and then slipped into the intake pipe. Once inside the pitch-black pipe, three of them walked in silence. Watase led the way in front of Natsuhiko, with Yuuri behind. No light reached inside the pipe, leaving their vision nearly useless. But still they pressed on forward, to leave Leibo their prison of 9 hours. And little by little, Natsuhiko felt something that had been surrounding his body slowly fade away. It may have just been his imagination. It was an indescribable sensation. WX particles? Leibo's interior was filled with WX particles. Those elementary particles that tried to connect people, even if it meant rearranging their genes. Perhaps Natsuhiko had unconsciously felt their presence. No, the WX particle energy should have already decayed away. What exactly? As he pondered, suddenly, he remembered a previous conversation he had with Yuuri. The experiment that Yuuri and Dr. Tenkawa were going to perform today. When Natsuhiko asked what sort of experiment his mother had attempted to run, Yuuri answered thusly.
簡単に言うと魂を作る実験だよ。実験の内容はまず WX 粒子増幅器を使って N エリアに500ミリスカラーバリュー前後の WX 粒子力場を発生させる。でも WX 粒子には何の情報も載っていない。ただのエネルギーの塊。言ってみれば空っぽの魂だよね。つまり博士が実験したかったのはこういうことだよ。もし私の脳内の全情報エネルギーを BC によって脳外に放出した場合、そこには私の魂がもう一つできるのか。
Do we have a spare Natsuhiko out there? That we created using using our BC for so long while we were dying. Using Senses Sympathy for so long. Don't know. Due to the terrorist attack, the experiment could not be carried out. But instead, I kept using BC. Not just me, but Yuuri too, and Mashito, and Nagisa, and Miss Tachibana too. And as a result, the emitted information energy lingered and mixed, and eventually perhaps something was even born out of it. So the information energy that we got regurgitated to us after the fact was a result of this spirit. That bit that I joked was, this is what we call the plot last time. That might actually be justified. Or this might actually be justifying that. A being thinking, with all of our collective memories, remembered the pipe and the bomb, and put the idea out there for us to hear it. Of course, using the words of the people who said the things. Perhaps the malfunctioning particle amplifier really gave birth to an empty spirit. Maybe nothing was born at all. Natsuhiko did not know. When I think back, I feel like something was always right there beside me. In times of pain, times of hopelessness, and in times of paranoia and doubt. It was always there with Natsuhiko. Or is this a player analog, superimposing itself with his mind through BC particles and showing him which route to... Yep, that's a player analog. Oh shit. Natsuhiko couldn't help but feel that was the case. And just a few steps ahead of him, Watase thought the same thing. I get the feeling something's fading away. Something that had always been inside of me. The further they got away from Labo, the more real that feeling became. Right before Watase could think any more about it, it suddenly got hard to breathe. Uh-oh! Crap, the air tank's running low. Watase's heart throbbed in pain. Oh shit. How much longer until the exit? The path was dark and seemed to go on forever. God damn it. Come this far. Desperately tried to keep walking, but the water resistance hindered his advance. His brain became oxygen deprived and his consciousness gradually grew hazy. Crap. I can't breathe. Damn, it hurts. Eventually his thoughts grew muddy. His memory hazed over as well. Guf. Why? Why does it hurt so much? Wait. Where the hell am I even? Huh? What am I doing? In a place like this? What? Am I carrying this heavy thing? What? What is happening to you, Watase? Eventually a faint light floated before Watase's eyes. That's right. To save everyone, I leapt into the gas. Area 3's inner ring was filled with oxygen-deficient air. Only a few minutes were left until it was time to administer AD. I need to get this AD to everyone. Quick! Else everyone will die. He didn't want anyone to die. With his mind entirely devoted to that thought, Watase crawled forward. But the wounds he incurred along the way on his mission suddenly began to hurt. His fractured ribs, a gunshot wound to his flank, laceration on the back of his head, his entire battered body. His throat felt like it was on fire from thirst and all the vomiting he'd done. His body was as heavy as lead from all the exhaustion he'd built up. His lungs wheezed from the difficulty to breathe. His heart felt like it was about to burst. Damn it. Is this the end? Right when the last of Watase's strength was about to fade, a voice echoed in his head.
渡瀬どうした？しっかりしろ！
That voice revived Watase's consciousness. He seemed to have hallucinated for a second. Watase forcibly pumped himself back up and responded.
大丈夫だ。少し疲れただけだ。
酸素がないのか？だったら僕の酸素を分けて。
よせ。そんな気遣いは無用だ。
何？
お前は要救助者なんだ。現状で俺が助けてもらうわけにはいかない。
For that mental answer, Natsuhiko grew quiet. After a moment's silence, he continued speaking to Watase.
頑張ろう、渡瀬。きっとあと少しだ。
As Watase ravenously sucked in what little oxygen remained in the tank, he spurred his body to keep walking. Damn it, this little brat's always got the perfect timing. He's such a slave driver. He had heard that voice countless times today, and countless times had that voice bestowed him with courage. Is that why I've been trying to save everyone? He's just been leading me this entire time. No. Suddenly recalled a conversation he once had with Yuuri.
サードインゲージョン。
本で読んだことがあるんです。
Oh my god.
災害の現場とか遭難した時とか極限の状況に人が
Yeah, that's me.
存在しない声が聞こえちゃうことがある。
Yeah, that's me. Sorry, Watase.
その声はいつだってその人が取るべき行動を指し示してくれるそうです。
不思議な現象もあるもんだな。なんでそんなことが起こるんだろう。
人の心、知恵とか記憶とかが極限の状況だとフル回転して、それで弾き出したやるべきことが声として響くんじゃないでしょうか。
記憶か。俺には記憶はないけど。
だけど記憶が失われても漠然とした思いは残るっていう話もあります。隊長さんの心の中には人を助けなきゃっていう強い思いがあったんじゃ。
The third man factor. Its true nature was most likely a strong feeling within the mind. Desire to save someone. That's right, that's what's always been driving me forward. The other me who disappeared when I regained my memories. It wasn't just the feelings that propagated from Natsuhiko. Feelings of Wataru, Kazumi, Jun, Eno, Kira, Yuuri, Mashiro, and Salyu. Everyone else Watase had come into contact with had mixed inside his mind, becoming one single will. The will to live. And the will to save. Don't stop. Stay conscious. If I fall here, the two behind me can't advance. With that thought alone, Watase pressed forward to carry out his mission. Natsuhiko watched as Watase's steps became horribly unsteady. Natsuhiko reached out and pressed Watase's back.
頑張れ頑張れ渡せ。
Then wordlessly, Watase wrapped his arm around his back and grasped Natsuhiko's hand. Aww. Relieved, Natsuhiko sent telepathy to Yuuri.
ユーリついてきてるか。
ここにいるよ。
Yuri's hand soon touched his back. Natsuhiko reached his right arm behind him and grasped her hand. In the midst of the cold sensation of the water, they felt each other's warmth. The darkness without light. The overwhelming black void where they lost sight of even themselves. The sensation of hands in his hands solidified Natsuhiko's consciousness. And then he felt the warmth of life. His heart was filled with the thought that he was not alone. By his presence and her presence alone, Natsuhiko was able to push forward. Just how far had he walked? Suddenly, the feeling of entrapment surrounding him vanished. He had gotten out of the pipe. Natsuhiko had been thrown out into the depths of Lake Rokume. Ah! That moment, the oxygen respirator fell out of his mouth. Oh fuck. Crap, I need to get to the shore quick. Which way is the shore? Go towards the light. Wait, not that light. Natsuhiko panicked in his disorientation, but the hands he held hadn't slipped out of his grip. Dark depths, he faintly saw an orange uniform. Watase swam to the surface, still holding on to Natsuhiko's left hand. Good man. Relieved, Natsuhiko held his other hand tight as well. His right hand, his connection to Yuuri. How many times had he held that hand since he'd met her? This time he would not let her go. As Natsuhiko swore upon that oath, he saw light streaming down from above. Then brought their faces out from the water. Brought themselves ashore. Watase breathed furiously as he got out of the lake. Natsuhiko took a deep breath and looked at the two beside him. There were Watase and Yuuri. Yuuri took off her oxygen respirator and spoke to the other two.
ひかり、隊長さん、ここ外なんだね。外に出られたんですね。
We sure did, Yuuri. Sure did. Her eyes were wet with both the lake water, and her tears.
ああ、
そうだよユーリ僕たちは生き残ったんだ。
Hell yeah! Natsuhiko's and Watase's shouts of joy resounded in the night sky. And thus they successfully escaped from Labo. Everyone was exhausted and their bodies were battered beyond belief, but Regardless, all 9 had safely escaped with their lives.
ありがとう、渡瀬。
Natsuhiko thanked Watase.
何度ももうダメかと思ったけど、お前のおかげで助かったよ。
Watase looked away in embarrassment. Oh,
言っただろう。礼を言われる資格はないって。
私からも言わせてもらいます。ありがとうございます、隊長さん。隊長さんのおかげで私たち本当に。
after seeing Yuuri get tearful again, Watase scratched his head.
だからいいって。俺は約束を守っただけなんだから。
照れてんのか、お前。
そんなんじゃねえよ、ガキ。
Watase looked away, then softly spoke.
脱出できたのは全員の力だ。爆発まであと10分ってところでみんなが心を一つにできた。
They sure
い
did.
や、その前からすでに心はまとまり始めてたのかもな。お前の PC のおかげで。
そりゃ違うよ、渡瀬。
Natsuhiko firmly refuted Watase's statement.
僕がしたことは無差別テレパシーを使ってみんなに事実を教えただけだ。それでみんなは他のみんなの気持ちを知ってお互いのために動こうとしてくれたけど、
But it could have failed.
でもそれは BC を使わなくったってできることだろ。
Correct.
そう思うか。
BC is just a means of facilitating communication. It's not some magic work together spell.
そうだよ。時間がなかったからあんな方法を取ったけど。
So the effects we got in here can be achieved with just normal communication, given the time.
本当は時間をかけて話し合って何度も会ってそうやって触れ合っていくうちにいつか分かり合えるはずなんだよ。 BC を使わなくてもきっとな。
Natsuhiko wished for that to be the case. Yuuri nodded.
私もそう思います、隊長さん。私たち9人の間にはたくさんの対立がありました。でもそのほとんどはね、 BC なしに解決できたんですよ。
確かにな。
そう。例えばジュンさんと先生。
ああ、あの二人最初は仲悪かったのにいつの間にか喧嘩しなくなったよな。
だな。
They did. And they eventually made up. Even if we only saw the official apology in one of the normal endings. 3 survivors smiled at those words.
隊長さんと吹田さんもそうですよね。
そういえばそうだな。渡瀬が記憶を失ってからはお互いに疑うは言い合いするわ。
それ言ったら俺とユーリもそうさ。最初はなんで嫌われてんのか分かんなくて悩んでたもんな。
そりゃ自業自得だろ。
Yeah, true.
そうですよ。最初は怖かったんですよ。
But the after me didn't know that.
悪い。
いいえ、もう許しました。
え
ちょっと首絞められたくらいみんなが受けた傷に比べればどうってことないですもん。
You already know. In a serious context, that's a bad thing to say, and in a non-serious context, that's an even worse thing to say.
俺、ユーリ、なんか強くなったな。
A little striking's no big deal. Well then. Tell that to Cosme and her little rope play there.
そうかな。でもヒコリンほどじゃないよ。
Everyone laughed again.
懐かしいな。それもこれもずっと昔のことみたいだぜ。
Yeah, now the danger's past, that makes perfect sense.
そうだな。ほんの9時間の間の出来事だけど、9人分の人生を丸ごと覗き込んできたようなもんだからな。
After he said that, Natsuhiko suddenly remembered something. He had to contact Mashiro and the others in the rescue copter and have them come pick them up.
おっと、真城たちに連絡しなきゃ。
こんな時こそテレパシーを使おうよ。
だな。長距離テレパシーが最後まで役に立つとはね。
Natsuhiko nodded and sent telepathy to Mashiro.
真城、聞こえるか？僕たち脱出できたぞ。今、6名湖のほとりにいる。できればヘリで迎えに来てくれ。
No response from Mashiro. They were probably outside of her effective telepathy range. Natsuhiko was confident that his own telepathy had reached her.
渡瀬、今ヘリを呼んだ。それに乗ればもう心配ない。保安ロッカーの手の届かない安全なところまで逃げよう。
そうか。これで本当に終わりか。
Watase looked towards Leibo. A pillar of smoke billowed up. It was likely an after effect of the tetral bomb. There was no doubt a huge commotion was around Leibo right now.
俺たち全員生きて出ることができたんだな。
はい、皆さんのおかげで。
9分の1はお前のおかげでな。
そうだな。
Watase spoke with a depressed voice. Something about his tone was worrying. He's thinking about the promise to take Yuuri to Q, isn't he?
どうした渡瀬？傷が痛むのか？
Without answering Natsuhiko's question, Watase posed one of his own.
なあ、夏彦、ユーリ。覚えてるか？俺が悪意を消去された直後のこと。
え？
あの時に交わした約束のことだよ。
The moment Watase said that, an abrupt coat of clouds covered the moon, casting his face in darkness.
覚えてるけど。
それがどうかしたんですか？
あの時、俺は言ったな。
Watase's voice caused Natsuhiko's heart to throb in pain.
全員の脱出に協力する代わりに、この事件が終わったら、ユーリを Q に連れて行くって。俺は約束を守った。だから今度は。
As he spoke, well,
お前たちが約束を守る番だ。
Watase took the gun out of his pocket. Oh, great.
何の冗談だ渡せ。
Natsuhiko opened his eyes wide and shouted. Watase had his gun pointed at them. Natsuhiko couldn't believe his eyes.
せっかく脱出できたっていうのに何をしてるんだ。
すまないな夏彦。これが俺の使命なんだよ。ユーリを Q に連れて帰るということに。
そんな。
Now that escape became a reality, we can't exactly follow through on that. And we don't want to follow through on that. Yuuri finally made it out, and she deserves a chance at life. Natsuhiko shouted furiously.
渡せ！お前どうしてそこまで Q にこだわる？お前の本性はテロリストなんかじゃないだろ？人を助けるためにお前は生きてきたんじゃないか。
Why can't you trust Anna to get the truth out?
なのにどうして
Like
ど
that,
うしてそんなことを言うんだ。
like that's your road out of this.
だからこそだよ。この9時間の間に俺はみんなの過去に触れてきた。そして少しずつみんなのことを理解していった。だけど全員の気持ちに立とうとすればするほど湧き上がってきた考えがあるんだ。
考えって？
この死がどうしようもなく狂っているっていうことだよ。
Oh no.
お前だってそう思うだろ。俺もお前たちも他のみんなも六名士の連中に人生を狂わされてきたんだ。何年にもわたっていろいろなものを奪われてきたんだよ。ラボが壊れたところで死の連中にはさほど痛くもないだろう。また似たような施設が再建されシステムは再構築され 狂った世界が続いていく。それを止められるのはおそらく Q だけだ。
Probably.
そんな先生のいる超歌曲とか。
今まで超歌曲が何もできなかったから悲劇はずっと続いてきたんじゃないか。
Well,
だが Q に賛同するコミュニケーターがいれば状況は一変する。6名士の連中もラボの上層部もきっと裁くことができるはずだ。
are you now talking about using a communicator's powers for your terrorism? If so, that's not cool.
だからユーリ、俺たちの戦いに力を貸してくれ。
何を、そんなことできると思ってるのか。お前について行ったりしたらユーリもテロリストとして追われる立場になるだろう。危険な目にもたくさん遭うし、この町に帰ってくることもできなくなる。約束を破ることになってもそれだけは認められない。
Watase laughed dejectedly at those words.
お前がそういうのは分かった。でもな、夏彦、今回ばかりは引けない。誰かがやらなきゃダメなんだ。行動しなきゃ何も変えられないんだよ。
His face was full of conviction. Q may have been a terrorist organization, but it did conduct its actions with a just cause. Watase chose to stick to those intentions, even if it meant making enemies with Natsuhiko. That dedication saddened Natsuhiko severely. He thought he had finally become allies with Watase, but it seems that they had a fundamental, irreconcilable difference at their cores.
渡瀬、今回ばかりは従えないよ。たとえ銃を突きつけられても。
What are you gonna do? Shoot me a fifth time?
そうか、そうだろうさ。だったらもう仕方ないよな。お前がどうしてもこの取引に応じたくないというのなら。
A bitter smile formed on Watase's face. And he'll shoot? As soon as Natsuhiko considered that thought, Watase said something completely unexpected.
夏彦、俺の記憶を消せ。
Natsuhiko dadded his ears.
何を言い出すんだ。
俺のすべての記憶を消せと言ったんだ。かつてお前が真城を守るために俺にそうしたように。
そんなバカなこと言うな、渡瀬。お前はすでに僕に何度も記憶を消去されている。脳にもダメージが蓄積してるはずだ。もう一度お前の全ての記憶を消してしまったら、今度こそお前は死んでしまうかもしれないんだぞ。なのにどうしてそんなことを。
わからないか、夏彦。俺とお前の意志を同時に取ることはできないってことだ。ユーリを連れていけないなら俺は使命を果たせない。だが俺の意志は俺が俺である限り変わらない。それがお前の意志と相反するというのなら、お前の手で俺の意志をかき消してくれ。そうすればお前たちは自由になれる。
That's a hell of a choice. Once he heard those words, Natsuhiko finally understood Watase's sentiment. Watase had put his life on the line to save others, yet his own act of terrorism created several victims. His longtime co-workers, Professor Tsubakiyama's superiors, and high-ranking label researchers. He had failed to save Nagisa, too. There was no turning back for Watase. After dabbling in terrorism just once, he probably felt the only way to atone for his crimes was to pass judgment on the true evil with his own hands. But
渡瀬、他に道はないのか。
お前にはあるかもしれないが、しかし少なくともこれが俺の選んだ道だ。たとえ大切な者たちに背を向けてでも、両手を罪に染めてでも、己の使命を果たすために。
Natsuhiko's heart throbbed in pain to hear Watase's bitter voice. Almost seemed as if Watase were pointing the gun at himself.
だから夏彦、お前の選べ。これが最後の選択だ。 お前と俺のどちらの主張を取るのか。お前と俺のどちらが正しいのか。
Obviously, the answer is the choice lay with Natsuhiko. Yeah, right, it does. And there was only one chance to choose. This choice will determine the future. And my fate, Watase's fate, and Yuri's fate as well. Natsuhiko's thoughts sped frantically through his mind as he stood frozen in place. How was someone like me supposed to choose? If Natsuhiko merely willed it, Watase's memories would disappear in an instant. Yet the fact that Watase hadn't launched a sneak attack on him and really does want to let me choose. This wasn't a showdown between Natsuhiko and Watase. It was entirely Natsuhiko's choice. Would he erase Watase's memories and smash his conviction to pieces? I don't want to do something like that, but... Natsuhiko looked at Yuuri, who was standing by his side. She had let herself be locked away deep under Labo for 9 years to protect Natsuhiko's peaceful life. You could feel her warmth through her hand. Can't let go of her ever again. A few hours ago, Natsuhiko would have probably taken Yuuri in a heartbeat. But things were different now that he found himself relating to Watase. Things were different now that he knew all of Watase's memories and emotions.
消したくないよ、渡瀬。今のお前の信念が僕の意志と相反していても、記憶を消せばお前がまたあの正義のレスキュー隊員に戻るとしても、僕はお前を消したくない。
Natsuhiko.
As Natsuhiko gritted his teeth, Yuuri smiled and spoke.
ねえ、ヒコリン、そんなに苦しまないで。隊長さんの記憶を消したくない気持ち、わかるよ。消す必要なんかないんだよ。だってこれは初めから約束してたことなんだから。そうですよね、隊長さん。私、約束守りますから。
Oh no. Watase said nothing in response. Natsuhiko just stood there in a daze as Yuuri continued.
あの時、隊長さんと取引してよかったです。だって全員無事にラボから脱出できたから。だからヒコリン、私、隊長さんと一緒に行くね。
No! Yuuri said that, then tried to walk away from Natsuhiko. But he wouldn't let her go.
ダメだ、ユーリ。行かせるわけにはいかない。言っただろ、絶対に君を自由にしてやるって。
ヒコリン、でも。
Just then, Watase finally broke his silence.
Natsuhiko, 今のお前に必要なのは彼女を呼び止める言葉なんかじゃない。今のお前に必要なのは行動だ。ユーリを自由にしたいならお前にはしなきゃいけないことがあるだろう。
Watase's voice was stern. The light in his eyes was mysteriously gentle. So I have to do it.
そう、やるしかないんだよ。
Watase muttered that as if he'd read Natsuhiko's mind. Natsuhiko gritted his teeth, then looked at Watase and answered.
ごめん、渡瀬。僕は約束を破る。僕は自分の都合のためにお前の記憶を。
With that declaration, Natsuhiko used Senses Sympathy one last time. His field of vision was filled with radiant light. Felt something warm flow through him from the depths of Watase's mind.
それでいいんだよ、夏彦。お前がそれを選んだのは、お前が怪物だからじゃない。大切なものを守りたいと願う人間だからこその選択だ。
Oh god, Watase. Don't do this to me.
お前は俺の気持ちも考えて こうすることを選んだんだろう。だから俺はお前の選択を受け入れる。
As he listened to that voice, Natsuhiko erased his memory. Well. I guess we're going to be finding out how many different ways that last decision can go. This feels like a different ending theme. Murakami Hyogo. Kashiwagi Yuuri. Oh, the researchers. Executive of Q. Others. Arbitrary classroom voices and such. Oh man. I will admit I was not expecting one final choice, but it works. It's of course we'd have to make that choice. What are we doing? Does it mean there's, like, are these the final endings? However many ways this final decision to play out, is this just what we're fated with, or is there yet another tier of ending? We got through the first roadblock, the six live, 3 die roadblock. And we ran headlong into this one last clash between Watase and Natsuhiko. What a way to call back to how we started the game, essentially, with a clash between Watase and Natsuhiko. Watase's heart filled with malice. This time, Watase's heart filled with warm emotions. Having grown so much. Getting over his fear and hatred of communicators. Not quite being able to shed his desire for revenge, I guess. And perhaps knowing that's something that he'd never be able to let go willingly. And really, they both have something that they would never be able to let go. Natsuhiko comes so far, finally getting Yuuri back, finally getting her out of Labo. He doesn't want to let go of Yuuri more than anything. And Watase doesn't want to let go of his vengeance. And perhaps out of consideration to Natsuhiko, and out of consideration to Natsuhiko and to himself, knowing that he could never give up on his revenge, asks Natsuhiko to make the choice and wipe his memory. And still reassuring him with some warm emotions that it's not that he's doing it for good. After days. His consciousness was in an endless darkness. Where am I? Oh, didn't know. His head was a total blank. What is this? Couldn't remember a thing. This happened. He desperately tried to figure out why. Soon enough, a mysterious voice whispered in the corner of his mind, as if praying for him to awaken. I wake up in some unfamiliar place. Where am I? That thought in mind, I look around. I find myself lying in some sort of bed. Immaculate white sheets and the wafting scent of antiseptics. Looks like I'm in a hospital room of some sort. I see what appears to be a policeman standing in a corner of the room. Beside the bed, a boy and a girl are looking at my face. Oh,
気がついたか。
よかった。隊長さん、私たちのことわかりますか？
looks like they know me. With that,
夏彦とユーリ。
oh? I remember them. I sit up in the bed and focus fully on them.
どういうことだ。なぜ俺はお前たちのことを覚えているんだ。いや、それだけじゃない。すべて覚えている。
It's not just Natsuhiko and Yuuri I remember. I remember it all. Every detail of my 32 years of life as Watase Kasasagi. The fact that I'm a terrorist. The 9 hours we spent trapped in Labo. Our escape. All of it. Oh shit. And how at the end of it all, I held Natsuhiko at gunpoint and forced him to make a decision. Natsuhiko answered by saying he'd use Senses Sympathy on me and... No, what happened after that is the one thing that's a total blank.
夏彦、どういうことだ。お前は俺の全記憶を消したんじゃなかったのか。
消さなかったんだよ。僕があの時消したのはお前のあの瞬間の記憶だけだ。
That second.
何？
お前にユーリを連れて行かせるわけにはいかなかった。だけどお前を消したくもなかった。だから僕は以前やったようにお前の記憶をほんの一部だけ吹き飛ばし気絶させたんだ。
It's either the promise or collecting on the promise. Upon hearing those words, I finally realized what he's getting at. Back when I was trapped in Labo that day and still had amnesia, Natsuhiko knocked me unconscious by erasing my current memory when our minds were linked in order to protect Salio. I did that one more time to protect Yuuri.
消した記憶の量がごく少ないが、記憶消去のショックも小さかったとは思うけど、それでもお前が死ぬんじゃないかって不安だった。
ヒコリンはあれからずっとここで隊長さんが目覚めるのを待ってました。あなたが生き延びることを心から願ってたんです。
そうか。
And so I survived. Not as a complete blank slate all over again, but as the terrorist I am.
これがお前の出した答えか、夏彦。
ああ、これが僕の精一杯だった。
Natsuhiko sounds guilty about all of this, so I give him a wry smile.
そんな顔をするなよ。お前の選択は何一つ間違っちゃいない。俺の負けさ。
Natsuhiko has nothing to say to that. I really don't like silence, so I continue.
ところで、あれからどれくらい経つんだ？みんなはどうなった？
あの日から3日経っている。みんなは無事だよ。消火局に保護されて、今は安全な場所にいる。
じゃあ、この病院は？
そう。ここは6名市街の警察病院だ。ドアの向こうには椿山先生と、そして先生の同僚たちが待機している。
俺を逮捕するためにか。
先立って浮田のおじさんはあの日のうちに逮捕された。
Understandable. Naturally, they've already taken my gun from me. That way I can't take Yuuri away even if I wanted to. Of course, I had no intention of doing so, but...
Natsuhiko, Yuuri, 一つ聞いていいか。
なんだ。
どうしてお前たちは俺が目覚めるのを待ってたんだ。俺が目覚めたらユーリをさらおうと暴れ出すかもしれないだろ。お前たちはこんなところにいないで安全な場所に逃げていればよかったはずだ。なのにどうして。
Two of them calmly answered my question.
安全な場所に逃げなかったのはお前がそんなことをしないと信じてたから。
目覚めるのを待っていた理由は隊長さんと一緒に行くという約束を破ったことを謝りたかったからです。
なるほどな。律儀だな、お前たち。
I found myself saying that in an unexpectedly gentle voice. Their answers warmed my heart. Hearing that they trusted me makes me incredibly happy for some reason. Even though I know their trust won't erase my crimes.
これから俺は裁かれるんだな。
すまない渡瀬。約束を破った上、お前にそんな仕打ちを。
バカ、何を謝ることがあるんだ。胸を張れよ。お前は正しいことをしたんだ。お前が前に言った通り、俺の罪は公の場で裁かれるべきだ。
そうだな。
どれだけ時間がかかろうと償いはするさ。俺の生涯をかけて。そのことももう受け入れている。心残りは一つだけだ。
心残り？
六名士を断罪するという信念を貫けなかったことさ。
That truly is the one thing I regret. I look off into the distance and continue.
あの日、俺は二人の仲間を失った。俺たちはやり方を誤った。自業自得といえばそれまでだろう。だが、六名士の黒幕連中を、真の悪党どもを裁きたかったという思いは本物だったつもりだ。あの町では長い間密かに多くの人たちが踏みにじられてきた。渚をはじめとして、その人たちの無念はどうなるんだ。これからもあの町では過ちが繰り返されるのか。死んでいった人たちの思いを俺はもうつなぐことができない。それだけがどうしても悔やまれる。
I grit my teeth at frustration. At that moment, Natsuhiko takes my hand and speaks.
その思いは無駄にしない。僕らがそれを受け継ぐから。渡瀬、僕らはあの日、あの場に集まったみんなの心に触れた。お前も含めた全員の思いに。それで僕の心に刻み込まれた信念がある。あんな街をそのままにしてはいけないって。
A light of determination fills Natsuhiko's eyes. Yuuri nods and continues.
私たちはこれから隠蔽された真実を暴き、あの街を変えるための活動を始めます。テロという手段は取らないけど、隊長さんたちが望んだ戦いを。
おそらくこれから僕らの身にも危険が及ぶだろう。戦いが終わるのにどれだけ時間がかかるかもわからない。だけど僕らには仲間がいる。真城やサリュや母さんや先生、そして立花さんとジュンさんも。
Oh, they're all here.
だから約束するよ。過ちは終わらせると。もう誰も犠牲にしないと。
お前たち。
The looks on their faces are no longer those of children, but adults. Natsuhiko firmly grips my hand and continues.
お前が償いを終える頃には、きっとこの世界はもっとマシになってるはずだ。そのマシになった世界でもう一度会おう。今度はテロリストとコミュニケーターではなく、あのラボの中での一日を一緒に生き延びた仲間として。
ああ、
With that answer, I gripped Natsuhiko's hand back.
心残りはもうなかった。死者たちの思いも俺の信念も確かに夏彦たちに受け継がれた。だから俺は信じようと思った。偽りと悪意に満ちたあの街を、彼らの善意が変えることを。そうしてやがてはこの罪の時代も終わり、新たな日々が始まるはずだ。彼らの未来に光があることを俺は心から祈った。
Light breaking. The clouds. Successor from regret. Where does this go in as a... Oh, wow. Well, that's a lot of stuff going on here. Got our normal endings. True? And 3 other endings? Oh, shit. Well. We're at the hour mark, and we've got... It seems like there's 3 other gooder than good endings. So I guess that's what we'll be doing next video. Getting the rest of these better endings. Better and not quite true. So... Wow. I just... I'm surprised, but so pleased that they spun that in a positive direction. It's just so good. Alright. Whew. We're really getting to the end of this. We're really getting there. I don't know what it's going to take to get the true ending, but we have 3 more endings to get next video. And then, true route go? We'll find out next time on Route Double.
と俺のどちらが正しいのか。
The choice lay with Natsuhiko. And there was only one chance to choose. It is Natsuhiko's will strong enough to make that choice. Not this time. This choice will determine the future. And my fate. Watase's fate and Yuuri's fate as well. Natsuhiko hung his head and racked his brain. Can I choose? Were at all possible, he wanted to fulfill Watase's wishes. We were partners who had once established an emotional bond, after all. I can't just go and do that, can I? Yuuri wasted 9 years of her life to save me, didn't she? There's no way in hell I can just hand Yuuri over to Q after she's done all that. As he thought to himself, suddenly. An epiphany struck him like lightning. That's it. How did I not think of that? There was but a single way. Single way to both fulfill Watase's demands and save Yuuri at the same time. Oh, he's gonna go. That's it. That's the only way. It means not having to hand Yuuri over, then it's a much better alternative. Natsuhiko quietly resolved himself. He looked Watase straight in the eye and spoke.
なあ、渡瀬。
なんだ。
お前に同行するコミュニケーターは Q に協力するコミュニケーターは有利じゃなくてもいいんだよな。
Yuri's eyes widened instantly. She probably understood the meaning behind Natsuhiko's words.
光、まさか。
そうだよ、有利。僕が君の代わりに渡瀬と一緒に行く。なあ、渡瀬。それでいいだろう。
When Natsuhiko asked that question, Watase responded.
それに勝る答えはない。
As such,
夏彦、苦労をかけるな。
お前のためにこの道を選んだわけじゃないさ。
true.
ただ僕は大切な人たちのために。
ダメだよヒコリン、隊長さんと一緒に行っちゃダメ。
Yuuri interrupted Natsuhiko.
ヒコリンは Q の仲間になりたいわけじゃないでしょ。なのにどうして。
僕はテロリストにはならないよ。だけど渡瀬の言う通り、確かにこの町は異常だ。誰かがそれを正さなきゃならないなら、僕もそのために行動したいんだ。今まで一緒にいてくれた全ての大切な人たちのためにも。
だけどこの事件できっと Q は今まで以上にあらゆる機関から睨まれるんだよ。隊長さんについていたらもう普通の生活なんかできなくなる。みんなとも二度と会えなくなる。そんなの嫌だよヒコリン、行かないで。
But Natsuhiko shook his head and gripped her hand.
ユーリ、そう言ってくれて嬉しいよ。でも僕は君に9年間救われ続けてきた。今度は僕が君を救う番だ。
じゃあヒコリンが行くんだったら私も行く。
ダメだよユーリ、それは危険だ。真城やサリュや母さんにももう会えなくなるんだぞ。だから君は連れて行けない。行くのは僕一人だ。
嫌だよヒコリン、そんなの嫌。
Yuuri screamed as heavy teardrops rained from her eyes. She was like a child throwing a tantrum.
私は今度こそ一緒にいられるって。
This time he's the one willing to leave, and she's the one who doesn't want to let him go. Understandable. It's that heartbreak of not being able to be out of this after finally getting out of there.
これからはずっと一緒にいたいって。
ユーリ、ごめんな。だけど僕はきっと戻ってくる。それまで少しの間お別れだ。さよなら、ユーリ。
Natsuko whispered that to her, then used Senses Sympathy one last time to erase Yuri's current memory and knock her out. And at that moment, his field of vision was filled with radiant light. He felt something warm flow through him from the depths of her mind.
最後まで泣きましね。
Oh,
それがヒコリンの選択だったら私に止めることはできないよね。だけどヒコリン、一つだけお願いだよ。絶対帰ってきてね。私待ってるから。マシロンとサリュちゃんと博士のヒコリンの帰りを待ってるから。
along with her telepathy came feelings meant to console Natsuhiko. As those feelings enveloped him, Natsuhiko blew Yuri's memories away. Well, I don't know if that's how I saw that going, but it makes sense. I'm apologies for not having much to say about that, but it just... Again, I'm not entirely sure I saw that playing out exactly the way it did, but it does make sense. It's certainly a way out of the situation. And so far, none of these ways have ended violently. In that, in direct contrast to their first encounter, neither side seems to want to actually resort to violence this time. Natsuhiko doesn't want to mind crush Watase, and when he does, he goes lightly. Watase doesn't seem to actually want to shoot Natsuhiko. Feels like he's just doing it to either make Natsuhiko... Either Natsuhiko caves and offers up Yuuri, or Natsuhiko stands up and wipes out Watase's memory. He's very clearly said, when we did this the other direction, that he was aiming to put the ball in Natsuhiko's court. Even when given an opportunity to blat, he hasn't. Genuinely been waiting for Natsuhiko to make the decision. So far we've seen Natsuhiko doesn't want to wipe out Watase's memories, so just does a present wipe. Watase ends up in the hospital, gets arrested. Natsuhiko and Yuuri agree to work with Enna to actually take on the corruption in Rokame City. Aiming to fulfill Watase's dreams and wishes for revenge. Which are coming from a understandable and valid place. Even if Q seems to be a bit too far in the other direction. Now in this case it seems like we are so first ending we went with the ESP Bureau. This ending we're going to work with Q. But hopefully not resorting to Q levels of terrorism. Before crime.
Natsuhiko, 大丈夫か?
Oops. Eventually his voice echoed through the darkness. I opened my eyes at the sound of his voice. My five senses returned to their connection to Yuuri, and I see Watase with my own eyes.
大丈夫。ただ心が痛んだだけだ。ほんの少しでも彼女の記憶に傷をつけてしまった。でも自分の都合のためにこの能力を使いたくはなかったんだ。
It's a gateway drug. Looks a little disappointed. Yuri's lying down by his feet. Seems Watase had caught her and laid her down on the ground after she had fainted from the shock of memory erasure.
本当にすまない、夏彦。何もかもお前の望むところではなかったが、俺と共に行くことも含めて。
Answered that question after a moment of silence.
そうとも言い切れないさ。今になってようやくお前や浮田のおじさんの気持ちが僕にも理解できてんだ。 と知れず踏みにじられた人がいたのだ。そしてこのままじゃそんなことがいつまでも繰り返されるのだとしたら。
Then you want to do what you can to stand up to them, right?
この手を罪に染めてでもそれを正したい。
Sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do to get the powers that be to pay attention.
お前もそう思ったんだろうな、渡瀬。
あ
もっとも僕には Q がどんな組織なのかわからない。実は6名士以上に罪にまみれた悪のテロ組織なのかもしれない。だから Q に心を許しはしない。ただ僕は果たすべき役目のためにお前と一緒に行くんだ。
もちろんだ、夏彦。お前をテロリストになんかしないし、危険な目にも合わせない。
It's surprisingly wholesome of you.
誘いをかけた俺の責任だ。これからは俺がお前を全力で守る。
義理がたいのは相変わらずか。まあ一応頼りにはしておくよ。
口が悪いのは相変わらずだな。まあ気持ちはわかるが。
There are things that Watase and I cannot do alone. There are things that Watase and I must do together. Now that we share a joint role, a smile forms upon our lips.
それじゃあそろそろ行くか。もたもたしてると真白たちが来てしまうかもしれない。
ああ、申し訳ないが、有利なことは先生たちに任せよう。
これから僕らはどうすればいいんだ。
あの森を抜けたところに Q の構成員の車が迎えに来ているはずだ。連中は都市ゲートを抜けるための準備もしてあるらしい。まずはその手引きをした上、この町を脱出しよう。
分かった。案内してくれ。
Ah. Watase and I start walking off after I say that. He supports me as we walk through the dark forest. The stars shining in the night sky faintly illuminate our path. Eventually, I speak up.
なあ、こんなことを言ったら変に思われるかもしれないけど、
なんだ。
ようやくお前と分かり合えたような気がして少しだけ嬉しいよ。僕とお前が力を合わせれば何とだって戦える気がする。敵が何であろうと信念を貫ける気がするんだ。
そうだ。
Oh,
そのために俺たちはこの道を選んだ。
that's why we chose to take this route. Watase looks at me and answers softly.
本当の戦いはこれからだ。おそらく辛く厳しい戦いになるだろ
分かってるぞ。それでも僕は全ての真実を明るみに出し真の悪を裁こう。
う。ああ、そして約束する。全部終わったら俺が必ずお前を有利のもとに送り届けると。
ああ、頼むぞ相棒。
Oh. Watase nods firmly at those words.
そうして僕は渡瀬と共に歩み出した。大切な人々を守るために。そして今まで踏みにじられてきたまだ何も終わってはいない。平穏を取り戻すその日まで僕らの歩みは止まらない。胸の奥で熱い火が静かに燃え始めた気がした。
Double end. For an ending where we've essentially radicalized Natsuhiko in a sense. That was so shockingly wholesome. Of course, mainly in the relationship with the friendship between Watase and Natsuhiko. The understanding they've come to. Watase and his seemingly genuine desire to protect Natsuhiko from the danger that that Watase is knowingly bringing him into. Natsuhiko obviously going in Yuri's stead. Not just for Yuri's sake, but also for Watase's sake, in a sense. So he very clearly wants to respect Watase's wishes. In this particular case, the conclusion he came to, that respecting Watase's wishes for revenge, and respecting Yuri's, well, his wishes for Yuri's freedom, the natural conclusion was, I'll go with Watase instead. Seems like despite coming to that conclusion as a means to keep Yuuri from having to be underground and on the run, in a sense, as a result of all of the memory and understanding we've been doing, really out here supporting Watase's goals. Obviously, he is, because in the other wipe out Watase route, he agrees to keep fighting for Watase's goals in his own way, staying away from Q. So I suppose if you want to analyze which is the right decision, it's difficult because one, we don't actually know enough about Q aside from some of their shadier deeds. The picture we've been painted is really that Q has a tendency to go a bit too radical, but they have people with seemingly good hearts and an honest desire for change, sort of in the lower tiers, join up aiming for change. Like Watase Nukita genuinely meant well, but they got wrapped up in a situation that spiraled out of their control, so to speak, and now they're forever branded as terrorists. Good intentions be damned. Good intentions be damned, because good intentions still have consequences. Ah. Q's motives as presented in this game aside, you could treat both sides neutrally and see which option would be more likely to get the desired result from Rokame City. You could join the ESP Bureau, or use the ESP Bureau. Yeah, it's a Japanese. No, this is entirely Rokame City focused, so. Huh. That's weird. It says it's a department of the Mext, which makes it feel like it'd be Japan-wide. But also described as originating in Rokame City and being centered in Rokame City. Which I wonder what is exactly the truth here. I feel like it'd make more sense if it was a Japanese-wide government branch. It's like a government watchdog over BC-related activities. They obviously have the authority to inspect BC-related facilities, which is how Enna and her friends got into Labo to begin with. So you could have faith that with the power to conduct a full-scale investigation, the ESP Bureau might be able to enact some actual change. Or you could believe in the ability of the terrorist group to inspire some actual change and rally the public. Rally the public's support, expose the government's crimes, and pressure the government into taking action against Rokame City. Honestly, I want to say I'm always for direct action, tear down the government, and break out the guillotines. I just can't shake the fact that Q is just a bit too far to the stereotypical terrorist part to be trusted, for that to be weighted evenly in the debate between ESP Bureau or Q. Like, their Q was... And we don't really know the full picture. But given what we've been given in the game, feels like Q, on the shade of honest, passionate, direct action against government, to like, if we consider the scale for Q to be on the left, direct action, honest grievances ignored by the government, so you're taking direct, violent, aggressive action on the left. On the right, we have Marvel villainy. Q kind of trends a bit to the right, I feel like. So I don't know how I feel about fully supporting them, but... Okay, that's enough of me babbling. What's next?